Who would be the third name that
Well,
you
we
bring
got to
up?
talk about Shedeur Sanders, and I like him. I mean, but I think he's a perfect example to me. Like, I think he throws a beautiful ball. I think his ball placement is good. I think he throws it well on the move. He's got to clean up some stuff in the pocket. He doesn't have very good pocket awareness. He has a tendency to hold the ball with one hand. Now, these are coachable things, but that needs to be cleaned up. He tends and he was under a lot of pressure. There were a lot of plays where he had no chance, zero chance. And but what he does have a tendency to do, and this also has to be cleaned up, is retreat backwards. And you know this as an offensive lineman, you can't retreat backwards in the NFL. So, but I think overall, you're talking about a shorter quarterback who's a pocket player. So to me, he's a ball distributor and an executor of an offense. He needs the system to work for him. He needs a run game. He needs a good old line. He's a piece. He's a piece of an offense. Um, again, I never know where guys are going to get drafted. Um, the player I've talked to some scouts, the name that often comes up as a comparison for him is Geno Smith. And Geno Smith is a little bit bigger with a better overall arm, but he's probably that kind of quarterback.
Um, so that's interesting because I definitely think that Geno has a stronger arm,
He
no
does.
question.
He does.
And my thing for Shedeur, is there any similarities to Bo Nix there at
I
all,
don't. I
Greg?
think Nix is a much better athlete.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, I
All
think
right.
to me Shedeur is similar but not as gifted as C.J. Stroud. Like he's a pocket quarterback who needs good O line, good system. He needs things in place. But Stroud to me is a better thrower.
Yeah, I'll say this. He's tough as nails because he took some incredible
No
shots.
question. I
But
like
I do get frustrated. Their O line his first year especially was so bad that I think maybe he got some bad traits. But usually, Greg, the security of the pocket is stepping up, not
right.
retreating.
I mean, I think he can be a quality starter in the NFL, no question. But I think it goes back to how we started this conversation, Ross. I think he needs, to be in a certain kind of situation, which most quarterbacks do. This is not a knock on Shedeur Sanders, but my guess is, and again, no one knows about the draft. Quarterbacks often get drafted higher. But I've spoken to a lot of people, and this is my evaluation too. I just gave you my evaluation, but I've also spoken to people who think in an ideal world, he's a late first, early second round type player. And just to make one quick comment, one quarterback that's garnered a lot of conversation, obviously, is Shedeur Sanders. And just one thing to keep in mind, teams have done studies. I'm one person, so I can't do studies over 20, 25 years. It's very easy to say when you watch Shedeur Sanders, for instance, that his O-line was bad, and it was not good. We know that. But one thing that stands out and that holds true, Ross, for teams that have done these deep studies, is quarterbacks that get sacked a lot in college get sacked a lot in the NFL. And we're going to see what happens, for instance, with someone like Caleb Williams, who was sacked over 80 times in 2 years at USC, and look how many times he was sacked in Chicago. And it's always easy to say that it's the offensive line, but that's just something to keep in mind. No knock on Sanders, no knock on Caleb Williams, but studies have been done that show that. So just these are things to keep in mind as you think about quarterbacks and the transition, because that's what we're ultimately talking about.
You
So
know
now let's
what?
get to Dylan.
I
Go ahead.
I want to say this. You're 1,000% right. To me, it's a red flag. On some level, Greg, you either, and I do think you can get better at it. I will say that. If the
Right.
coaches keep harping on it, I do think you can get better at it. But on some level, you either have, you get it about throwing the ball away or getting rid of it, or you don't.
Right.
And that would be a huge, because by the way, I don't care about their, I mean, I do care about their offensive line a little bit. Here's the other thing, Greg. In the NFL, they get to you faster.
Yes.
And in the NFL, they confuse you more. So if, let's say out of the 80 Caleb Williams sacks, okay, I don't know how many are him holding the ball, how many he was confused, but That doesn't get easier at the NFL. In the NFL, those guys get on you like that, and they confuse you more.
And one other quick point, and I think this stuff's really important for people to understand about the NFL game. The other thing in the NFL is you have to work from what we call squeezed and muddy pockets far more than in college, where you have to function intelligently and effectively when there's people close to you, okay? And that doesn't mean just leaving the pocket. You have to be able to make throws from the pocket when bodies are close to you. That's a necessity in the NFL. And some quarterbacks have to learn. Like, for instance, I thought that C.J. Stroud struggled a little bit with that this year, and that is the next step in his learning process because he's such a good thrower of the football. He just has to learn to become more effective when there's people close to him. That's a necessity in the league.
And it's so funny that you say that because that was my concern with him coming into the NFL because I never saw anybody around him at Ohio State.
Correct.
It was like he had a pristine pocket and Olave and these guys are wide open. I thought, wow, he's going to be in for a wake-up call when he goes to the NFL. Hey,
anyway, I just wanted to, it's just because I get a lot of really intelligent comments on social media, from a lot of people who really love this stuff. And I just want to, again, guys can improve, guys can change. This is not a knock on everybody's career. This is based on college tape and then and a projection and transition to the league. So let's get to Dylan Gabriel.
But Emory, let's start with the quarterbacks. And this surprised me a little bit. When you and I were texting back and forth, your number one ranked quarterback is Shedeur Sanders. I thought for sure it was going to be Cam Ward. Tell me why you have Shedeur over Cam. And by the way, Emory has a first name and a last name for every quarterback except for Shedeur. Okay, so he's already like his dad, Dion. He just goes by his first name. I will say this. Never heard of Shedeur as a name before in my life. I love that name. That's a sweet name. Shedeur Sanders, that like just sounds right. That's a sweet name. But why, Emory, why do you have him ranked ahead of Cam Ward?
I feel like with that name, he should be co-hosting NBA Inside Stuff. Remember that show? But listen, Shedeur and Ross has been my QB1 for this particular class for quite some time. And it's not to say Cam Ward isn't right there nipping at his heels. Graded out as 1B, in my opinion. A similar situation I had with the class with Richardson, Stroud, and Bryce Young. You can't go wrong with either Shedeur or Cam. But for Shedeur, I just like how consistent he's been in playing the position in terms of from the time we first saw him at Jackson State to where we last saw him at Colorado. Touch timing, anticipation, situational football has been excellent. I was impressed with how well he was playing as a true freshman. He was playing senior level football from the neck up, and it just really blew me away at how consistent he was with the decisions that he was making more so than the physical talents. And then as he continued to get more talented physically, talk about his armor, got a little bit stronger. He started to be a little bit more cognizant of when and where to take off and run and utilize some of his athletic skills that he has to buy time or to pick up that cheap first down. Shedeur Sanders aces situational football and playing the quarterback position how you kind of want it to be played.
So, couple different questions here. Let's talk about the physical for Shedeur because he's not a big guy.
Mm-hmm.
I guess you know more than I do, but I guess I would say I feel like maybe average arm strength in terms of like a top 10 pick and probably average athleticism, right? Like this is not Lamar Jackson, this is not Josh Allen, or from a physical ability, it's interesting because he doesn't really wow you, which is why you've been on board calling him the Black Joe Burrow for over a year. And then I saw, who said that recently? Which guy said that recently?
Titans head coach Callahan.
Yes. Brian Callahan, the Titans head coach, said that. Did he get that from you or did he see that too? I guess he coached Burrow for years, so he would know.
He would know. And the reason why I went with Burrow so early is because a lot of what you talked about. And let's run it this way. If you talk about what is the knocks on Burrow coming out, didn't really have the strongest of arm. People said they say that about Shedeur. Not really the twitchy athlete, but does have ability to buy some time within the pocket and can pick up the cheap yards if need be. They say that about Shedeur Sanders. They also said that this guy locks in on, locks in during situational football time when you need to have it type drives. Shedeur does that, has done it multiple times like Burrow has. One of the knocks on Burrow was he takes some sacks because he thinks he's more athletic than he is. That's Shedeur Sanders. So all of those things checked up beautifully, which is why I went with that comp. And yes, Shedeur is shorter than Burrow. Burrow is about 6'4". Shedeur is about 6'1" and a quarter, maybe 200 pounds. But what I like about Shedeur's frame is that he has the frame, I feel like, to add weight if that becomes a concern. But right now he's about 6'1", 200 pounds, a lean guy, not as lean as Jared Goff, maybe on the Geno Smith spectrum in terms of how he's built. Maybe they're probably built similarly, but in terms of the skill set, in terms of who I would compare him to, would be Joe Burrow. Although I can see and understand folks that say Geno Smith, because Geno Smith is an excellent player, but Smith to me has a stronger arm.
Yes, I was going to say, I feel like Geno can rip it more. And I'm not saying Geno isn't tough or Joe Burrow isn't tough. I would say the defining characteristic for me, watching Shedeur, the two things that jumped out, very accurate, even when he's on the move, and he's tough as nails. Because you would think, like, kind of grew up with a silver spoon, has all the NIL money. No, dude. He I forget this commercial, but he took a licking and kept on ticking. I don't remember what Duracell maybe back in the day. I don't know what, but the Energizer Bunny, he took a licking and kept on ticking, which I thought was super impressive watching him at Colorado. So, okay, you got Shedeur number one. It's interesting too, Emory. Bryce Young didn't have any wow physical characteristics either. And he was smaller than Shedeur and maybe a little more mobile, but I don't know. I bet you their arm strength's about the same. It's actually remarkable, I think, that guys like this are number one overall picks now. That never would have happened. You had to be Drew Bledsoe or Ryan Leaf or like 6'5" with an absolute bazooka to be the number one overall pick. That's kind of changing.
It makes me wish someone like Charlie Ward played now.
Yeah.
Opposed to then. He's 5'11". It's probably built a little bit like Bryce Young was, in terms of, slender build, shorter guy, but great leadership skills, dynastic quarterback in terms of the pure point guard, similar to how Bryce Young plays. Charlie Ward was playing the same way. Maybe another physical comp would be Teddy Bridgewater. How he was built at Louisville, kind of built like Shedeur, and kind of navigated, his leadership skills the same way Shedeur did at Colorado. So you were starting to see these types go in the first round, but you kind of wish some of those guys back then, like Ward, would have been in this era of football.